Let's move on to a little bit of politics, which is what you actually prefer more than investing. What is the trend around the world? You've done a study of some 100-odd countries and the elections they've had over the last 5-10 years, many more actually. And this is what Ruchir found, that the anti-incumbency revolt has intensified. In 2009, that's just 7 years ago, 90% of governments were voted back into power. That was pro-incumbency. Now, only 40% of governments are voted back into power. That's a huge change again.
Yes, and
there's a kind of discontent around the world.
Yes, and this goes back partly to my original point, which is that economic growth is lower everywhere. People are feeling the disappointment of that, even though that's about as good as the global economy can grow today, given the trends in global population. But still, there's so much angst that even in India, that why can't we grow at above 7% anymore, or in other countries, why the growth rate's much lower, like Brazil's growth rate is negative, Russia's is close to negative. There's so much angst across the world in terms of why are economic conditions not improving more. Wage growth has been quite disappointing. So what we're seeing here is a very strong anti-incumbency, anti-establishment movement, and something which we saw in 2016 as well, whether it was Brexit or Trump's victory out there. So we looked at the 50 largest democracies in the world, and when elections take place, and what's the trend been out here, and it's quite a staggering trend. But there are two disturbing aspects to this which I must point out to. Which are the leaders who are being able to buck this anti-incumbency trend, one, and two, in terms of the fact that are we seeing any signs that this is like shifting like for the better or not? Right. But I think that the problem here is
throwing them out or bringing them back.
Exactly. But the problem is this, that the leaders which seem to be bucking this anti-incumbency trend are leaders which are invoking nationalism. Leaders which are, sort of casting themselves as very strong authoritarian leaders. So you have people like Russia, someone like Putin with approval ratings for whatever it's worth, if you can trust them, but you generally sort of know that it's in that ballpark of 70-80% approval ratings. Erdogan in Turkey with very high approval ratings, even though the economy is in complete chaos and we have all the geopolitical risks in Turkey. Yeah. So I think that this is something which is a bit of a disturbing trend, which is that nationalism is something which has become the antidote to this. And the other trend is the fact that a lot of people are now trying to experiment, come up with new experiments on how to beat this trend of anti-incumbency, or some sort of a diversion. And in some ways I felt that you can argue that even demonetization was part of that trend, which is the fact that because economic growth didn't really pick up much in India over the last 2 or 3 years, I think there was a bit of a temptation to try something different, which may not be directly related to juicing up economic growth, but try something different. And then you get these sort of experiments which take place.
And the surgical strikes, strike, nationalism that you talk about.